You're listening to a special interview segment for the official podcast for WrestlingNewsSource.com.
Okay, folks, joining us on the show this week, the one and only Tommy Dreamer. Tommy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on. You're getting ready for the Icons of Wrestling and Comic Book Collector Fest that's going to be followed by the House of Hardcore on Saturday, August 6th at the Pasadena Convention Center, 7902 Fairmont Parkway in Pasadena. Doors are going to be opening at 11 a.m. It's going to be an all-day event with a portion of the proceeds benefiting Bustin' for Autism. Tickets are available right now at thecollectorfest.com and houseofhardcore.net, not com. I tested that out. And you do not want to go to houseofhardcore.com. With the featured stars, Mickie James, MVP, Billy Gunn, Carlito, the Sandman, Vicky Guerrero, and, of course, Tommy Dreamer. So, Tommy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. And, yes, I'm looking forward to coming down to Pasadena. I've wrestled there before as well as, right next door in Houston. It's been a great wrestling town because once you get past the D.C. area, it becomes wrestling, and I love it. And, some great hardcore fans there, and plus trying to raise some money for autism. So it's going to be a great night of action. Absolutely.
And speaking of, you did say you'd wrestled in Pasadena. We were actually at that show last year, and we saw you perform against Lance Hoyt in the main event. And this is kind of a personal story. I'm really glad that I get to talk to you about this because you originally weren't scheduled to compete that night, but due to scheduling conflicts or whatever reason, the main event was not able to happen, and you stepped up, you performed to make sure the crowd went home happy. And, just from a personal standpoint, I just wanted to say thank you for going out there and doing that. I know a lot of wrestlers might not necessarily want to perform on a night off or something like that, but you stepped up and you delivered one heck of a show for the fans, and I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Oh, no problem, absolutely. And that was it was a fun night, and, it helped raise money then, and besides, that was actually the last time I ever took a choke slam, because after that match, I actually started feeling a lot of pain and said, I got to get rid of taking choke slams because my wrestler bump card, once I start feeling pain, I got to get rid of that move. And the only other time I took it was when I returned to WWE and I was doing tables matches with the Wyatts, and unfortunately I had to go through, take a double Wyatt choke slam through a table, but oddly didn't hurt as much as Lance Hoyt's choke slam.
Well, I've listened to a few interviews with you in the past, and you say that once you set your mind to, I'm not taking this move again, you stick to it.
Yes. Well, I don't want to be in pain in my life. I've been wrestling 26 years, and I have broken my neck, I have broken my back, I've had a litany of injuries, but yet I've not had one surgery yet. So I'm going to keep on going as long as I can keep up that streak. And I remember after that, man, I was messed up for a little bit, and then I was just like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. But then, WWE said, hey, can you take one more? I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. And if it hurts, I went through a table. So for some reason, the table braced the fall, or it didn't hurt as much. So I was like, I will no longer still take a choke slam, but I'll take one through a table. How ridiculous of a statement is that?
And if the price is right, I guess.
No, you cannot put a price on your health. It was just, I thought the table might have been different, and it kind of was, or just a good night or whatever. But it's kind of like when you take a choke slam, it was that whiplashing, motion, and it was funny. Someone recorded it, and I saw it on YouTube. I was like, yep, that almost ended my career. So every wrestler says you have a bump card, and once that bump card gets full, you can't take them anymore. So I just took, make sure I don't have to fill out my entire bump card, just still be choke slam one.
Absolutely. And like I said, House of Hardcore coming down to Pasadena. It's going to be a great show. This is actually the first time that the House of Hardcore is going to be in Texas. So really cool that we're going to get to be a part of it, and it's going to be one heck of a show. What inspired you to create House of Hardcore?
Litany of things. Always wanted to do it. I guess it was a natural progression for myself, and doing all the behind the scenes in the original ECW, and then in WWE. After I was wrestling there, I went in the office for a little bit, and I was the guy who hired a lot of men and women, and I ran the developmental system, which is now NXT, and that's kind of where it, I guess, all came from. And it was just I love wrestling. I have since I was 9 years old, and then caught me on a weekend where it was just so full of no more politics and all the stuff that goes on in wrestling. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it, and it worked out. And hence my slogan is no politics, no BS, just wrestling. And I just said I would do one, and if it was successful, and now we're up at House of Hardcore 16 in Pasadena. So it's been going good for me.
Very good. And, like you mentioned, you've worked for ECW, WWE, TNA, both in the ring and behind the scenes. And a lot of questions that I got were directed towards this. If you could describe maybe some of the similarities and differences between each of the companies backstage.
Easy. One, ECW, we were all kind of garnered towards the company. And, we're all willing to do whatever it took to take us to the next level. We were, living and dying by each and every show. And we also, the biggest difference is we had creative freedom. And that was huge for a lot of us, and especially me. And in WWE, it's pretty much a grind. It's everybody kind of going out there for their own, and yes, it is for the sake of the show, but everyone's going out there for, their own personal gains and glory. And, there's always another show there. WWE is a huge, huge, machine. And it was kind of just get in that groove of wake up, get on a plane, drive, wrestle, and you turn around, you're 10 years doing it, when you're there, when it's a little bit different. When I was there, it was, almost 300 days in a year I was wrestling. So a big difference between being that and a weekend warrior, pretty much when we're in ECW. But the paychecks were fabulous. So you kind of do that, and you sacrifice a lot for that. So it kind of balances it out.
Aside from the paycheck, you've wrestled just about every kind of match there is. What drives you to keep going, to keep performing? As you transition from fan to performer, what keeps you going? Yeah, I want to keep doing this.
The love. If you don't have passion for this business, then you can't be in it. For me, I like to say I wrestled for free because I have. That was a lot of my entire ECW career. And, I wrestled at Madison Square Garden, where I've grown up watching wrestling. And, there's people who don't get in this. You have to love it, just because if not, it's not worth it for your body. It's not worth it for your psyche. For me, the drive was just always to go out there. I'm living my dream. I'm still living my dream at 45 years old. And as well as when I say it jokingly, but I wish I could be Tommy Dreamer 24/7, because when I go out through that curtain, I see people's reactions, and as well as at times I feel absolutely no pain when I'm performing. And, it's real life comic book, and I'm playing a really cool character. But there's nothing like it when you walk through that curtain. And again, especially like for the charity, you don't realize how many lives you have touched when you're out there performing. But being on the independents and doing what I've been doing in my own company, like when you have these meet and greets, you get to talk to people and meet people. And I've had some amazing stories where people have just told me how I influenced them. And, here I am thinking I'm just this big, dumb wrestler, but then they're telling me how I give them the strength to carry on different things or different points of their lives. And I've gotten to see my life's work to come to fruition. You
speak of fans coming up to you, telling you what you mean to them. I did want to get your opinion on a touching subject that happened not too long ago, the passing of Balls Mahoney. We actually had him on back in, I believe, 2011. He was the very second guest that we had ever had on our show. And, we were devastated. I can't imagine what you and his friends were feeling. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the passing of Balls Mahoney.
Oh, I mean, it's horrible. John was a hell of a nice person, and I said it. We did a tribute out the House of Hardcore show in Philadelphia, where we said he was a crazy man, but he was our crazy man, and he was a few guys, had spoken to him. He was a character, and it's besides that, the best thing I want to say about him was his love for his son, and the saddest part now is his son, grows up without a father,
Absolutely.
and but how I don't mourn people's death. I celebrate their life, and if anyone listening out there, go and watch, Balls Mahoney versus Rob Van Dam from ECW, or Balls Mahoney and Spike Dudley versus the Dudleys, and celebrate his life and enjoy whatever enjoyment he gave you.
Very good. At what point in your career did you happen to notice that you had become the veteran that people wanted to come up and ask advice from, as opposed to being the one asking for advice?
And I still ask for advice. It's funny, on an independent show, I came back, and Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart was there, and I asked him, and he was like, "Man, that was a great match." I was like, "Oh, anything that you saw you didn't like?" And he was like, "No, man, you had the people and stuff." And as well as about a month ago, I had to call my mentor. I went and called the Double Cross Ranch in Amarillo. I called Terry Funk to ask him some piece of advice, and he's still amazing. He's actually headed to Japan next week to go wrestle at 70, and
Wow.
I'm using him on my own shows in September at the ECW Arena. So it's just, I never will stop learning. But for me, I guess it started turning, at an early age, because I was doing it in ECW and, giving guys critiques. And it's funny, I remember speaking with Chris Jericho, and he tells me the first time he ever came into ECW, I pulled him aside, and we're the same age, and he was just getting into ECW, and I told him something, and he was like, "Man, that was the first thing you really ever said to me." He goes, "And it still held true, so thank you." And I was like, "Cool, man. You've had a much bigger career than me, and thank you for not saying, go screw yourself."
Very nice. And I'm glad that you brought up Terry Funk, because I was going to ask you, how in the world are you going to have a show in Texas and not have Terry Funk? But I guess we'll let it slide with him going off to Japan.
He was booked. Trust me. I wanted to do it. I actually wanted to do 2 shows in Texas and go to Amarillo, but he was booked. So I said, I can't not do a wrestling show in Amarillo and not have Terry Funk involved. So maybe next year, or working towards getting my own television. And so once that happens, then many, many more doors open for you.
Very cool. I know you're a big wrestling fan. That's one of the aspects of your career, that not only are you a performer, but you're also a fan. Are you keeping up with the current product? Do you take time to watch Raw and SmackDown and NXT and Lucha and all that?
Absolutely. I watch everything.
Very cool. Well, with the return of Rhino and Shelton Benjamin to the WWE, I've got to ask: do you think we'll be seeing Tommy Dreamer step back inside the WWE ring?
They have been talking with them a lot. They wanted me to come back, and I basically just said, I have so many commitments with House of Hardcore. I would love to come back. I would love to help. Kind of what I did the last time when I went back. I just can't sign a contract right now. So if that goes all well as planned, I can't give up on my own company. I can't give up on my own dreams. And I don't want to ever be competition with WWE. I just want to show an alternative product. So if that happens, cool. I look at House of Hardcore, and half the people that I've used or gave breaks to, they're all now in WWE or NXT. So I love being that for them. And, Rhino's worked for me on almost all my shows. And for him to be able to go back and WWE, I'm still going to use him. I got him in September, and then I'm going to finish him up in October. And then, he's full-blown with WWE. It's just, you never know. But for me, I can't give up on my own company, my own dream.
Absolutely. Similar to Booker T there in Houston. And Booker T and some of his guys are actually going to be at House of Hardcore as well.
Yes. As soon as I got I'm headed down to, Texas and Pasadena, he was the first person I called that said, "Hey, man, also out of respect, I know he does stuff." And I said, "Hey, would you like to be involved in this? I'll, put you guys to work." And him and I have been friends for a long time. And it was like, absolutely dream. And he's been an absolute pleasure. And when you talk my motto, no politics, no BS, just wrestling, that's exactly what him and I did. I was like, "Hey, I want to do this match. And, tell me what guys you have." And I know his guys are trained the right way. And he told me this, and this, and I was like, cool, let's do this, and we've been clicking on the same page for everything. So, and he also helps his company, helps my company, and bottom line, go out there, raise money for autism, and that's what we want to do.
It's a great cause, and it's going to be a great show. Looking forward to House of Hardcore. When you finally decide to call it a career in the ring, what's going to be next for you? Are you gonna mostly focus solely behind the scenes, or are you going to decide to walk away from the business?
I don't think I could ever walk away from wrestling. Hopefully behind the scenes of House of Hardcore, or I don't know, writing movies, or being a crazy actor on television like Terry Funk and Roadhouse, and something like that.
Very cool. We have one more question for you, Tommy Dreamer. We always like to ask our guests if they have any crazy on-the-road stories or any kind of crazy situations that they'd ever been on. Just wondering if you could possibly share one with us.
Well, hi, ECW. I don't know how many I have 1,000,001 stories. I don't know how many I can tell.
As many as you'd like.
I'm trying to think. Man, I have so many. Trying to think of one with Balls Mahoney, because I used to travel with him, and in both the original ECW and WWE's ECW. Okay, let me try to think. All right, Balls Mahoney we're in Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, you know what? I'll backtrack. We'll talk Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I can tell you Balls Mahoney stories for an entire hour of a show. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, fan starts jaw-jacking with Balls in Eaton Park, and he strikes Balls. Balls drops the guy, leaves him right there, and they call the police. Balls is handcuffed on the curb, and I like to explain to you, Balls would also not only usually have a bloody, scarred-up forehead with just white tape that would block him from bleeding all over people in restaurants. He was wearing shorts. He's probably about 320 pounds, and he was wearing his own T-shirt that was cut all the way down on the sides. And so he's sitting on the curb. His defense attorney is Little Guido, and they, of course, call me because I was kind of like the fixer or the cleaner up of things in the ECW. So Balls Mahoney's excuse for not going to jail, and he says this to the police officer, and I will have to digress a little bit further. His defense was, please don't arrest me. Paul is putting the straps on me and Axel, and we're the focal point of the next few weeks of television. And the police officer looked at him, and then the police officer uncuffed him, and he let us all go. So now if you basically go back, your defense is, please don't arrest me. Paul, who is Paul, is putting the straps, what is a strap, on me and Axel, who is Axel, and we're the focal point of television. What the hell is a focal point of television? And he let him go. So you really want to study the craziness, what I used to call every day as my weekends. That was something. And I was like, all right, man, thanks. See you later. So there you have it. It's just a warm little story.
That's great. We would love to spend just like hours upon hours hearing all kinds of stories from you, but I'm sure you're very busy getting ready for the House of Hardcore. It's getting ready to be taking place Saturday, August 6th at the Pasadena Convention Center, 7902 Fairmont Parkway in Pasadena. It's also going to be in conjunction with the Icons of Wrestling and Comic Book Collector Fest, and a portion of the proceeds are going to benefit Bustin' for Autism. Doors are going to be opening at 11 a.m., and it's going to be an all-day event. It's going to be a great time. Tickets are available at thecollectorfest.com and houseofhardcore.net with featured stars Mickie James, MVP, Billy Gunn, Carlito, The Sandman, Vicky Guerrero, and, of course, Tommy Dreamer. Tommy, we certainly appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. And I got some few surprises. House of Hardcore is known for some of their surprises, so I got a few surprises up my sleeve as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man, and we look forward to seeing you in Pasadena.
Likewise. Thank you for having me, and thank you for promoting it.
Oh, anytime. Have a good one.
See ya.